Just ahead on CTV News, lawmakers and advocates rally in Annapolis for fair wage.
Tip workers rally for better pay in Maryland restaurants. I'm Katara Jones. I have all those details coming up on CTV News.
Plus, an update on the controversy over the Beltsville firehouse, and the Washington Commanders get a new leader. Those stories and more next. Good evening. This is CTV News for February 1st. I'm Gina Barty.
And I'm Mariah Jalad. Some Maryland restaurant workers and owners gather to push lawmakers to pass a bill that provides employees in the restaurant industry a fair wage.
Supporters say the legislation would drastically impact the lives of women and minorities who make up a large portion of the restaurant industry. CTV's Katara Jones is in Annapolis with more on this story.
Restaurant workers today are calling on a change on how they are being paid. The One Fair Wage Group is pushing for the passing of Senate Bill 16. The measure would require the state's minimum wage with tips on top for restaurant workers across Maryland.
Currently, tipped workers in the state of Maryland can be paid a sub-minimum wage of $3.63, and they have to make up the rest in tips. That sub-minimum wage is a direct legacy of slavery. It was created after emancipation to allow restaurants to hire black women for free, not pay them, and force them to live on tips.
These workers, their base pay is in the $3 range. And we're like, what the heck? This is unacceptable. And so it's a simple thing, get them to the state minimum wage. And this bill, the One Fair Wage bill, does not prevent people from tipping them. And so it's a win-win for the workers, it's a win-win for our economy.
For a population that is still overwhelmingly women, disproportionately women of color, struggling to make ends meet here in Maryland, 105,000 tipped workers who are struggling with 3 times the poverty rate and the highest rates of sexual harassment of any industry, because they have to put up with so much from customers to get those tips. And so we are not only going to be testifying in the Maryland Senate about SB 160, we're also here offering food from wonderful restaurant owners who've responded to the staffing crisis by raising the wage, which is what we need to do.
A hearing on this measure took place in the Senate this afternoon. Katara Jones, CTV News.
And we do want to clarify that the measure is Senate Bill 160, not 16. A healthcare advocacy group is looking to expand the role of the state's Prescription Drug Affordability Board. Maryland Healthcare for All is backing Senate Bill 388, known as Lowering Prescription Drug Costs for All Marylanders Act of 2024. The bill would require that the governor's annual budget provide at least $1 million to the Prescription Board Affordability Fund. Vinnie DeMarco says the measure would ultimately expand the power of the board.
It's our number one priority, to give that board the authority it needs to make high-cost drugs more affordable for everyone. Colorado, Minnesota, and Washington have passed legislation doing that, giving their boards the authority to make high-cost drugs more affordable for everyone. That was modeled on our law of 2019. But now we need to do the same here in Maryland. And I think we will. I think our legislature understands that drugs don't work if people can't afford them.
A Senate hearing on this bill is set for February 7th at 2 p.m. The group will also host a Prescription Drug Affordability Coalition event on Wednesday, February 7th at the St. Anne's Episcopal Church in Annapolis.
Well, changes could be on the horizon for executive nominations in the Maryland legislature. A committee that oversees the appointments could soon require questions about election integrity and January 6th as a litmus test for election appointees. The move comes after the arrest and resignation of Carlos Ayala earlier this month. The Republican was a former member of the State Board of Elections. Ayala resigned after being charged with crimes related to his alleged involvement in the January 6th storming of the Capitol. Even with $1.1 billion shortfall projected for the next fiscal year, Maryland leaders say there are no plans to raise taxes in the state. But one local lawmaker says his colleagues are considering all options to close the budget shortfall.
There are, in the House specifically, several leaders are advocating that we raise revenue, and quite frankly, I don't know how we're going to be able to pay for some of the promises that we've made without bringing in extra revenue streams. So I'm focused on trying to make sure that we're not going to be impacting the people who are already overburdened, who are feeling it on their wallet already. And so how can we find ways for, say, millionaires or individuals who make money on the stock exchange, so on and so forth? How can we tap into their resources rather than the people back at home?
Governor Moore has proposed a $63.1 billion budget with no tax increases.
Heads up, Metro riders, there will be several station closures on the Red Line this weekend, as well as additional service adjustments on the Green Line. The transit agency will be performing maintenance and track work, installing radio and fiber optic cables for future technology improvements. Customers are advised to plan ahead for those adjustments. Free shuttle buses will replace trains on the Red Line between station closures. To view other Metro changes this weekend, log on to WMATA.com.
An update to a story we recently brought you regarding the Beltsville Fire Station. In a press release, the Prince George's Fire Department says it will relocate its career firefighters and staff effective July 1st, 2024. Officials say the building is in dire need of repair and that the transition is necessary to ensure the safety and well-being of all staff. The move has sparked controversy since it was first proposed, with many in the surrounding communities concerned about the lack of emergency coverage. Officials say a February community meeting will be held, although a date and location have not yet been announced.
The wife of a slain judge testifies in Annapolis about legislation to protect the personal information of judges. Stephanie Wilkinson says a man began searching online for her family's address in July. 3 months later, after his divorce proceeding, he fatally shot her husband, Andrew Wilkinson. The Washington County Circuit Court judge was killed in front of their home. Separate measures have been introduced in both chambers and have bipartisan support.
The state attorney general's office has released the identity of the suspect who went on a 12-hour crime spree and was shot during a confrontation with police in New Carrollton on Tuesday. The man killed by police is 28-year-old Artel Cunningham of Suitland. Investigators say he was shot after pulling out 2 handguns on the police. The officers have been identified as New Carrollton police officers Byron Purnell and Corporal Carlos Batnega. Police say Cunningham may have been suffering from mental illness. And you're watching CTV News.
After the break, financial aid could be delayed for college students.
Do you remember our first group photo? This is it. Smiles all around, even though we were all nervous.
Who could have imagined that our first weekend together would soon turn into a lifetime of memories?
You're an amazing young man. Your brothers and sisters really look up to you. They're a big brother.
It's so cool to watch the adult that you've become, and you really have done as much for us as you think we've done for you.
You know, it took 20 years, and I got my 3rd child, who was 17 at the time.
There's so many rewards in life. You coming into our home was one of the greatest rewards we could have ever had.
I ain't never felt so much love before in my life.
Welcome back. A state lawmaker who has publicly said he was sexually abused as a child says he's appalled but not surprised by the latest response from the Catholic Church. Delegate C.T. Wilson says the Archdiocese of Washington is following the footsteps of its Baltimore counterpart in failing to acknowledge crimes of the past.
I know the D.C. Archdiocese is fighting back in court, trying to say that somehow, some way, that this General Assembly tried to protect them infinitum, to make sure they can never be sued for crimes they've committed in the past. And that was never the intent of this legislator. I think they know that, and I think that right now the guilty minds are moving forward. They're panicking, so they're trying to do whatever they can do, because this investigation that does need to go forward.
A lawsuit against the Archdiocese of Washington was filed one day after a new Maryland law went into effect, removing the statute of limitations for child sex abuse victims. It came on the heels of a similar lawsuit against its Baltimore counterpart, which filed for bankruptcy just days before the October 1st law took effect. U.S. Representative David Trone's campaign for Senate outspends Angela Alsobrooks' efforts by more than $10 million. According to Federal Election Commission reports, Trone spent $13.7 million between September and December of last year, while Alsobrooks spent just $760,000. Trone is currently leading Alsobrooks in polls by more than 10 points. Along with those two Democratic primary candidates, 6 Republicans are competing in the May primary, including Robin Ficker, whose campaign has spent $2.1 million. The U.S. Department of Education says colleges and universities will not receive student applications for financial aid until at least early March. That's due to delays from the bumpy rollout of the new FAFSA form, which many students could not access until the first week of the year. Schools typically receive application info in late fall or early winter. The president of the National Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators says the delays threaten to harm the students and families that federal student aid is meant to help. More than 3 million students applied for the aid with the new form. Meantime, the Maryland Department of Education opens applications for sites to serve summer meals. The agency is looking for nonprofit organizations that can serve as locations for the summer food service program. The program provides free nutritious meals for children and teens who might otherwise go hungry when school is not in session. For more information, visit the website eatsmartmaryland.org. Well, Maryland State Treasurer Derek Davis says the Orioles chair John Angelos outright lied during recent lease negotiations by not mentioning plans to sell the baseball team. Davis says the state should have been made aware of the possible sale a month ago when agreements were being made to extend the Orioles lease at Camden Yards. Governor Wes Moore told reporters he was also disappointed in the lack of transparency during deal negotiations, but is happy to be keeping the Birds in Baltimore. News of the pending sale was reported a few days ago, and new ownership would include billionaire David Rubenstein and Orioles Hall of Famer Cal Ripken Jr. A recent report from the Prince George's County Association of Realtors found that the county's home value rose by almost 5% in 2022. The average sale price for a house in the county also increased, going from almost $425,000 to more than $430,000 for a 1.4% increase. The increase in value is attributed to lower interest rates and increased demand. Rising demand coincides with decreasing supply, going from 1.65 to 1.35. That means houses on the market would sell out in about a month if no new houses were built. Market indicators also show strength in the county's home market. Maryland State Police arrest a Kentucky man wanted for murder. The suspect is 41-year-old Tho Long. Troopers spotted Long's vehicle at a motel on the 8000 block of Baltimore National Pike in Ellicott City Wednesday morning. Maryland State Police and Louisville Metro Police worked together to arrest the suspect. Officials say Long has been charged with the murder of a woman found dead on January 30th. And now let's check in with Simon Buggs with a preview of Thursday's sports page. What are we talking about tonight, Simon?
What's up, sports fans? Are coming up in a bit. UMD men's basketball coach Kevin Willard, as well as guard Jameer Young, give their thoughts on the team's upcoming matchup against Michigan State, and the Washington Commanders make a head coaching change. Don't go anywhere.
With the doctor, or is this with the nurse practitioner? Fantastic. Dad, lunch. Got some soup for you.
You are loved.
Oh, you. Look at those freckles.
This was very much.
You are valued. You are strong. You are resilient. You got this.
you're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving.
Okay, sports fans, it's time for your Thursday sports page. We begin with some college hoops news. The UMD men's basketball squad will take the court this weekend against a familiar foe in Michigan State. The Terps faced off against the Spartans on January 21st, but did lose in the close game, 61-59. And head coach Kevin Willard, as well as guard Jameer Young, gave their thoughts on what their biggest takeaways were in the team's first matchup.
I think the biggest thing, facing them for the first time, which this group did, is understanding their speed and how fast they get the basketball out. It's really hard to practice. So I do think they were able much better to get back and get set in the second half against them. They're even faster at home, so I think that's going to be our biggest challenge for Saturday.
Just getting off to a better start, taking care of the ball, especially down the stretch, and they're in the gaps heavy. They're a veteran team, coached very well. So for us to value every possession and to get a shot every time, but also continue to get back on defense. Our transition defense is going to be very important.
Tip-off is Saturday at 5:30. Switching gears to the world of lacrosse, the Terps women's lacrosse team's spring season begins tomorrow as the Lady Terps will travel to Philly to take on St. Joseph's. Terps fans were able to get a glimpse of the team during the fall, and head coach Kathy Reese believes that period showed how deep her team is.
I loved our fall, to be honest, and I think a lot of it was we play a lot. Our women's lacrosse plays a lot in the fall. We're allowed 5 dates of competition, and so we have multiple games when we're out there and competing, and I felt like this is where our depth showed, right? Like a lot of people came back from working in the summer, better names that didn't really, we didn't hear a whole lot about last year, but players like Haley Russo had a great fall for us this season, and Maggie Wiseman and Nevo Farrell, and so really excited to kind of see those younger underclassmen step into roles that are going to help us and contribute this season.
The game starts at 4 o'clock. Moving on to the NFL, congratulations to Commanders wide receiver Terry McLaurin for being named the team's MVP for the 2023 season. McLaurin has been one of the league's most productive receivers, as this season he reached 1,000 yards for the 4th consecutive year, becoming the first player in Commanders history to do so. The 2019 third-round pick also led the team in yards, targets, yards per game, and receptions. Sticking with Commanders news, there's a new man in charge, as former Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator Dan Quinn has been hired as the head coach of the team. A great defensive mind, Quinn was with the Cowboys for 3 seasons and coached them to be one of the top defenses in the NFL. During Quinn's time in Dallas, the team had 3 straight 12-win seasons and won the division twice. And wrapping up sports, there will be some high school boys action being played tonight, as Oxon Hill will match up against Central, Northwestern will travel to Duval to take on the Tigers, and Bladensburg will attempt to avoid back-to-back losses in their matchup against Laurel. All games begin at 7:15. And that is your Thursday sports page. Simon Buggs, CTV Sports.
Well, thanks, Simon. Now let's get a quick check on our 3-day weather forecast. It's going to be a little bit warmer tonight with a low of 40 and cloudy with scattered showers.
Isolated showers tomorrow with high temps in the high 40s. Sunny for the rest of the weekend, which I cannot wait. 48 on Saturday and 52 on Sunday. And that wraps up our CTV News Update. I'm Gina Barty.
And I'm Mariah Jalad. Join us again tomorrow for more local news.
Have a great evening. Good night.
Good night.
If the time comes, be ready. Learn CPR and join the nation of lifesavers. Nearly 3 out of 4 cardiac arrests that don't happen in hospitals happen in homes. CPR saved my life. I've teamed up with the American Heart Association as a national ambassador to help create a nation of lifesavers, turning bystanders into lifesavers. through CPR education and access to AEDs. Join me to ensure everyone has the chance to live longer, healthier lives. Visit heart.org/nation.